The smoke is so thick you can taste metal and gunpowder with every breath. Inside the abandoned warehouse in Fallujah, 8 U.S. Marines are cornered, their escape routes systematically cut off by insurgent forces. The walls shake from RPG impacts, chunks of concrete raining down like deadly hail. Staff Sergeant Marcus Torres frantically calls for immediate extraction, but the response is grim. All units are engaged, no backup available for at least 30 minutes. They don't have 30 seconds. In the corner, Navy SEAL operative Emma Carter crouches behind an overturned table, her face pale, hands visibly shaking as she grips her rifle. The Marines barely acknowledge her presence. She's the intelligence specialist they were forced to bring along, the one who froze during the initial ambush. Corporal Jackson had literally shoved her into cover when the shooting started, muttering something about babysitting desk jockeys. Now, as the enemy fighters close in, Torres looks at her with pure contempt and spits out the words that cut deeper than any bullet. "Let's see who can save you now, princess." If you're watching this incredible story unfold, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us which country you're tuning in from. We love our global Her Force family. Emma Carter joined the Navy SEALs Intelligence Division at 23, the youngest analyst ever assigned to field operations. At barely 5'5" with a slight build and a tendency to stutter when stressed, she was everything the Marines thought didn't belong in a combat zone. They saw her Ivy League education and her quiet nature as weaknesses, never bothering to ask why a desk analyst had been specifically requested for this high-risk operation. What the Marines didn't know was that Emma Carter wasn't just any intelligence specialist. She was a former child prodigy in tactical warfare simulations, recruited at age 14 by a classified Pentagon program called Project Mindbridge. For 8 years, she had trained with former Delta Force commanders and Israeli Mossad operatives in a secret facility in Nevada, mastering something called predictive combat analysis, the ability to calculate enemy movements and tactics in real time like a human supercomputer. Her brain could process battlefield variables faster than most computers, seeing patterns and predicting outcomes with 97% accuracy. She had memorized over 3,000 historical combat scenarios, studied every insurgent tactic used in the Middle East, and could mentally simulate entire battles in seconds. But she kept this gift hidden, having learned that being underestimated often provided the greatest tactical advantage. The stuttering, the shaking hands, it was all carefully crafted misdirection. For 3 weeks, Emma had endured the Marines' constant mockery. They made her carry extra ammunition while calling her too weak for her own gear. During mealtimes, they loudly share stories of real warriors while pointedly excluding her from conversations. Corporal Jackson had even drawn a stick figure labeled Princess on the mission board, showing her hiding behind real soldiers. The worst humiliation came during pre-mission briefings. When Emma tried to suggest alternative insertion points based on her analysis of enemy patterns, Staff Sergeant Torres had actually laughed in her face, telling her to leave the real planning to people who've actually pulled triggers. 3 different missions had encountered unexpected resistance at exactly the points she'd warned about, but they blamed bad luck rather than admit she'd been right. Now, trapped in this death trap, Emma watched the Marines make desperate tactical decisions based on bravado rather than logic. Torres was preparing to split the team for a 2-pronged escape attempt, a move Emma's brain had already calculated would result in 100% casualties based on the enemy's current positioning. Her hands stopped shaking as her mind shifted into the state her trainers called the zone, where battlefield chaos became crystal clear patterns of probability and possibility. As Torres began dividing the team for their suicidal escape plan, Emma suddenly stood up, her voice cutting through the chaos with surgical precision. "Stop! Nobody moves!" The complete absence of her usual stutter made every Marine freeze. Her eyes had changed. Gone was the nervous analyst, replaced by something that made even these hardened warriors pause. Emma's mind was already processing. 8 Marines, 43 enemy combatants based on firing patterns, 6 possible exit routes, ammunition counts, structural weak points, wind speed affecting smoke dispersal. In 1.7 seconds, she had run 8,000 tactical scenarios. Only one offered survival. She began issuing orders with the authority of someone who had seen this exact battle play out 1,000 times before. "Jackson, fire 3 bursts at the northwest corner in 4 seconds. Not to hit anything, just noise." Before he could question it, she had already turned to the others. "Torres, throw smoke at bearing 270, but throw it soft. Let it roll." Her instructions were so specific, so bizarre, yet delivered with such absolute certainty that they obeyed without thinking. Emma grabbed the radio and began transmitting in perfect Arabic, then switching to Farsi, then a dialect of Kurdish that only locals would know. The Marines watched in stunned shock as enemy radio chatter exploded in confusion. She wasn't just speaking their languages, she was perfectly mimicking different unit commanders, creating phantom threats that didn't exist. But the real revelation came when she picked up a piece of broken mirror and used it to signal something in binary code out the window. "What the hell are you?" Torres began, but Emma cut him off. "Drone reconnaissance at 14,000 feet. I've been tracking its pattern for 6 minutes. I just told them we're the enemy unit that ambushed Marines. In 43 seconds, they're going to rain hell on the building across the street where the main insurgent force is positioned." The Marines couldn't process what they were witnessing. Their weak intelligence specialist was conducting warfare like a chess grandmaster who could see 20 moves ahead. Every action she orchestrated caused a specific enemy reaction, which she had already planned for, which caused another reaction she had also anticipated. It was warfare as pure mathematics, and she was solving equations that shouldn't be humanly possible. Just as the drone strike hit and the Marines thought they had a window to escape, Emma's expression went cold. "Stop. Nobody move. Not one muscle." Torres nearly exploded in frustration, but something in her eyes made him freeze. "Suicide bomber," she said simply, "triggered by movement sensors. He's been in the rubble to our south for 11 minutes. The moment we cross the threshold, he detonates." The Marines' blood went cold. They hadn't seen anything, but Emma had noticed a pattern in the dust dispersal that didn't match wind patterns, a shadow that moved counter to the sun's angle by 2 degrees. With 20 seconds before enemy reinforcements circled back, Emma did something that defied every combat manual ever written. She grabbed a helmet, threw it in one direction, then immediately sprinted directly at where she said the bomber was hidden. The Marines screamed for her to stop, but her movement was so precise, so calculated that the bomber's brain couldn't process it. She was moving in a pattern that exploited a known neurological delay in human reaction time, something she had learned from studying thousands of suicide bombing videos. In one fluid motion that would have made her Mossad instructors proud, she disabled the bomber with a nerve strike they didn't even see, secured the detonator, and then, in the most insane display of tactical genius any of them had ever witnessed, she reprogrammed the bomb's timer using its own wiring, turned it into a directional charge, and used it to blow a hole in exactly the right wall at exactly the right angle to create an escape route that bypassed all enemy positions. "Move, now, single file, step only where I step." Her voice brooked no argument. As they escaped through the hole, Emma was already on the radio, but this time in English, calmly directing incoming Marine reinforcements to specific coordinates. She had been tracking their response time and positions throughout the entire firefight, calculating exactly when and where they'd arrive. The debrief room at Camp Lejeune was standing room only. General Patricia Hayes, the first female general in Marine Corps combat operations, had flown in specifically after reviewing the helmet camera footage. The entire room watched in silence as the screens showed Emma's tactical mastery from multiple angles. Staff Sergeant Torres stood at attention, his face a mixture of awe and shame as they watched Emma predict enemy movements with impossible accuracy. The moment where she had directed their escape while simultaneously coordinating with assets they didn't even know existed was played 3 times, each viewing revealing another layer of her strategic genius. General Hayes turned to Emma, who stood quietly in the back, her usual nervous demeanor back in place. "Operative Carter," the general began, her voice carrying across the silent room. "Project Mindbridge had contacted us. They've declassified portions of your file. 8 years of training, perfect scores on every tactical simulation. You've been running combat scenarios in your head since you were 14. The general pulled out an official document. "You didn't just save 8 Marines. You executed a level of battlefield control that we don't even have terms for. Your actions are being studied at the War College as we speak." She paused, looking directly at Torres and his team. "Effective immediately, you're being promoted to Lieutenant Commander and assigned as Tactical Operations Coordinator for Joint Marine Navy SEAL Operations." Torres stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. "Ma'am, I called you Princess. We made you carry extra gear. Emma raised her hand, stopping him. "You did exactly what I calculated you would do. Underestimating me gave me the tactical advantage I needed to observe without interference." She paused, then smiled slightly. "Though the stick figure was unnecessarily crude, Corporal Jackson." The room erupted in nervous laughter, but Emma wasn't finished. "From now on in joint operations, we're going to train differently. Every weakness is a potential tactical advantage. Every person you dismiss might be the one who saves your life." She looked directly at Torres. "And to answer your question from the warehouse about who would save me, the answer is simple. I don't need saving. I'm the one who does the saving." 6 months later, Emma Carter's tactical protocols had been implemented across all joint special operations. Her ability to process battlefield variables had revolutionized how Marines and SEALs approached urban warfare. The same Marines who had once mocked her now studied her every analysis, trying to understand even a fraction of how her mind worked. And in the mess hall at Camp Lejeune, where they once excluded her from their table, Lieutenant Commander Emma Carter now held legendary status. Not as the analyst who got lucky, but as the tactical genius who had hidden in plain sight, teaching them all that the most dangerous warrior isn't always the strongest or the loudest. Sometimes it's the quiet one whose mind is the deadliest weapon on the battlefield. Before you go, tell us in the comments which country are you watching this video from. And don't forget to subscribe to Her Force Tales for more incredible stories. And hit like, share, and comment to support the channel.